Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Ruckus and The Menace podcast. I am here with The Menace, and we're here
So
to give you some sports stuff right here, right now. How are you doing, Spennis?
yeah, we're doing all right. Kind of to get a lot of kind of to really put a little bit of a teaser into the opening show or into the show here. A lot of this one is what a lot of us just dealt with and waited for with the chaos that is the MLB trade deadline.
Spoilers?
But
Come on, man.
but we spoiled nothing except for like saying, "Hey, this is what's going on here." But really, for as far as me, it's been if I haven't been working, if I haven't been trying to at least take some time to de-stress by going to Percival on Mondays, so that affected planning, um but other than that, I've mostly been messing around with some MLB The Show, playing NASCAR Heat. I did some Stray, some Multiverses, some Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, but more so, I had been working on getting stuff situated for home ownership with my fiance. So we now have a house that we will be getting into at the end of the month. That's why on the 24th, as a heads up, there will be no pod. There will be no pod episode on the week of August 24th, as most of that time will be spent mentally and even physically having preparations laid out for a move ahead, which could lead into some like when we decide to close, when we so it's a lot of home related things going on that week. So I'm not gonna have a ton of time. Other if that all may be subject to change on some other things going on. It may be the 31st that we decide not to have the episode instead, but it'll be one of those 2 weeks where we will have no pod leading up into the very next week being the NFL season preview on September 6th.
Yeah, we could always figure that out later on, but it's good to
Yep.
know beforehand.
Yeah. I'm giving that at least as far as people heads up and kind of like just giving them a little bit of a roadmap of where we're headed. So we're getting right into the NFL season, and other than really all this craziness that I've had going on, what have you been up to, Ruckus?
Well, not a whole lot. Just work, gaming, more work, gaming, occasional alcoholic beverages being consumed. But other than that, MLB The Show has been, for the most part, for me, in my opinion, a grind. But at the same time, I've been just kind of casually playing it every once in a while now. I used to go hard in the paint, but now I'll be doing it harder. Be doing it even more so because of the fact that there's double XP till the 9th of August. You said,
Yep,
or okay,
yep.
yeah,
We'll be more on that in the simulation here in a later point of the show, but
yeah,
because there was quite a bit as today there was a major content dump.
yeah. And then I also played a little bit of the new Battlefield update last night. It's not There's nothing like super significant of it besides the fact that they remastered, or not even really remastered. They just like redid a map that was just really wide open, and it was easy to just pick people off across the map. And there just wasn't a lot of cover in general. And that map is called Kaleidoscope on Battlefield 2042. I haven't really gotten to play on that map, but I've seen gameplay of it, and it looks pretty snazzy. Other than that, been playing a lot of Grand Theft Auto with a friend every once in a while because there was a new mission or like a new update that they brought out where you could play as a FBI agent where you're just kind of doing these little missions, and near the end of it you get to like, it's kind of like the, I guess you could say like the Dr. Dre missions where you do like these little missions to help people out, and then at the end it's like, okay, here's a finale mission, and then you get like this big payout. That's kind of how this new update was too. The Dr. Dre stuff was more like, okay, you get to do missions for Dre, and then at the end, like, there's this like cool little sequence. Other than that, like that, and then Battlefield, obviously, MLB The Show. I've been drinking a lot lately with the Madden mods. So I have Madden NFL 22 on Steam on PC, and there are other Maddens like before that you could use too for these mods. So there's a networking mod. So what that means is if you, let's say you watch football on occasion on like CBS, ESPN with the Monday Night Football, and occasionally Thursday night or whatever they do, sometimes on ESPN, and then there's an actual NFL Network Thursday Night Football skin that they do. There's an NBC Sunday Night, and then there's a CBS one as well that I thought was pretty cool. And then like obviously a Fox Network skin, but all in all, it's pretty cool. There's also a mod from Sabo, I believe is what it's pronounced as, and it's pretty cool too. It kind of makes the logic of the game as far as difficulty and just what the AI does in the game more like realistic and just more it's much harder and more challenging to play the game because the enemy or the away team AI or like the opponent's AI is more driven to like actually do things that normally the player would do, like spin around a tackle or like make it harder for you to like defend on them. Whereas if you did the default logic in the game, it's much easier to get tackles and stuff because of the logic that the AI has. But yeah, been messing with that too. That's been a lot of fun. And then also just excited for the Chiefs coming into training camp, and I'm glad that Orlando Brown signed his franchise tag. He was much needed.
Yeah, I mean, the hard part is that you got to go through it all again, so he'll become more than likely a free agent.
Yeah. But anyways, that's all I have as far as what I've been doing. We should probably start getting into the
Just
weekly
get
lineup
right to
now.
it. Yep, into the weekly lineup. We're gonna start with the NFL. Two major minor pieces are the Debo Samuel and DK Metcalf. Both get new deals.
Oh man, they don't get traded to the Chiefs? Damn.
Ugh.
I heard all these dumb rumors over like the past month or two about how Debo Samuel could get traded to the Chiefs, and the same with Metcalf, and that's why I make that joke. You're
No,
welcome.
I just I would have figured that I'm like, okay, DK. If DK were to get traded, he probably would be going where Russell Wilson ended up, but Denver would have to give up a lot.
They would have to let's ride. Sorry.
Just stop.
Causing a
and
ruckus as
Debo
always.
and Debo Samuel, I mean, he leveraged his situation incredibly, which was and it made the Niners have to cave. I mean, clearly one of the biggest leverage jobs that you'll see in the NFL that actually paid off. Debo could have done like Le'Veon Bell did, bet on himself and have it come back to bite him.
But what did he actually do? Did he just like not go to practice or anything like that?
Oh, demanded a trade, like was demanding a trade. He really
That
wanted
is
out of San
true.
Fran. He wanted out of San Fran. He was trying to get extended. I mean, it was all the stuff that Le'Veon was trying to do and holding out and all his leverage that he tried to do, but Debo now actually was showing up to things.
Yeah, and Debo has actually got a brain, whereas Le'Veon doesn't. But yeah, more on that later, I guess.
Couldn't stay off the weed.
Who, Devo or Livion?
No, Le'Veon.
Well, Bell was just an idiot in general, too.
Well,
This is coming from a Chiefs fan that only saw him for like maybe like 4 or 5 games, and then he like played the cripple card where he just like sat there on the sidelines and then wasn't really utilized, even though they could have used him. Just saying, this is just a salty Chiefs fan's comment there.
but now Kyler Murray's previously established mandatory film study clause that was in his contract we talked about last week has since been removed, which is probably a good saving grace, knowing the quarterbacks are already putting in a lot of work anyway. But the Miami Dolphins, for all of their tampering over the last few years, will lose their 2023 first round pick and their 2024 third round pick. The owner got fined $1.5 million, and the VP also got suspended until, like, another member of their front office was suspended until sometime in October for tampering involving Tom Brady and Sean Payton. And I saw an interesting fact on this, that for every single situation that in NFL history that has involved the loss of a pick, loss of a draft pick, who has been the one player that has been involved?
Brady.
It's been Tom Brady.
Oh
Every single
well.
situation that involved a loss of a draft pick involved Tom Brady. For that particular team, involved Tom Brady.
And in the Dolphins situation, they do have Tyreek Hill, so who the F cares at this point? Like, they don't need a whole lot.
I think they were wanting to get rid of Tua. Why would they be tampering for Tom Brady if they were not wanting Tua?
Well, they could have also tried to get Deshaun Watson too if they really wanted to, but stuff. But also they
Yeah.
could have gone for other options too while they were waiting, but then they decided, screw it, we're just gonna go with Tua and see how this goes. And we all know Tua is like doesn't have the strongest arm compared to the Mahomes man himself.
Oh, yeah. And the
But
next major thing that comes out of that is Miami just simply was like, yeah, you snooze, you lose. Like, you were caught napping trying to find your franchise quarterback. You thought you made your bed with Tua. You tried to get rid of him. You snooze, you lose. Now you kind of got to lie in it.
yeah, sucks to suck.
Or at least shame on you for lack of preparation.
Tis what
But
it
on to the
is.
Yep, and sticking into the AFC and talking about a quarterback. The decision on Monday was that Deshaun Watson was expected to be suspended 6 games for his whole debacle, for this
According
whole fiasco that has been going on.
according to a judge that
However,
recommended it, by the way. Let's just put that out there.
yeah, but there was a however that was going to be involved with this.
Go for it, my bad.
However, the NFL is set to appeal the suspension. So chances are that this is the NFL wanting to try and put more games. I think it's the NFL trying to put more games on.
Do you think Calvin Ridley's gonna bet that?
Not if not for his best interest if he's wanting to play football again.
I mean, it probably wouldn't go on a sports book anyways, but just hypothetically.
But still, not in his best interest. It's not in a parlay. It's not gonna do anything. I wouldn't see Calvin Ridley betting on this.
Never know, but whatever.
But the funny thing is that we were talking about tampering earlier. The NBA is now investigating the New York Knicks for some tampering regarding the Jalen Brunson contract that had him get stolen away from Dallas. So this could mean that pretty much I think the New York Knicks might have just acted too early or inappropriately on a situation that ultimately led to Jalen Brunson signing with them.
Yeah, and from what I saw from that when they had the free agency period start was it sounded like Brunson really wanted to be a Met. So or not a Met, a Nick. God dang it. They look the same, okay? It's just different
Was
sports.
it a Met, a Nick, or a Net?
You know, my brain says Nick.
It probably could have even been a Jet.
Ha 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 ha, get your laughs out now. You know I could get Russell Wilson over here and start saying some stuff, you know.
Oh no, but I was more so no, I was more so trying to make a little bit of a sense of like, okay, there's too many New York teams that all sound somewhat close together.
To be honest with you, the New York Yankees and the Mets, if you think about it, the basketball versions of those would be the Knicks and the Mets because they have about the same color scheme. And
The
then
Knicks and the Nets.
the Nets would be like the equivalent of the Yankees with their color scheme too. That's all
Yeah,
I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to say
yeah,
that as talent-wise. I'm just saying they all have a kind of a theme to them.
yeah. I mean, it made sense.
Hmm.
I can see why you did what you did.
Yeah, except for the Jets and Giants, but they're their own franchises. Who cares?
Yeah. Well, the New York Islanders also have that concept of the Knicks color scheme, while the Rangers have more of a Giants color scheme. But
Yeah.
so it all ends up coming together in one weird shape or form. But we deal with two losses in sports this week. Starting on Sunday with Bill Russell passing away at the age of 88. And this one kind of means a lot, especially to a basketball standpoint, as Russell was definitely a trailblazer in terms of the African American player in the NBA. I and 11 titles as a player. I mean, he the certainly one of the most decorated players in the league who now, because of all the all the stat padding and certain other things that come along what he has, he's maybe even a big man now today that may not get the respect that he deserves as a player.
He's a goat in that equation when it comes to being the big man, just the greatest of all time. Yes, we usually say Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, but Bill Russell, you gotta tip your cap to this man. And not even just that, like there's a certain respect that you had to have for a man of this caliber and just the way he was on and off the field. This
Yeah,
man was a very respected individual, and he lived a pretty damn good life. That's all I'm gonna say. I
and a
didn't know
very
a lot about
impactful
him.
one too. Like it seemed like a very impactful one too because he the NBA Finals MVP award is named after him.
Yeah,
And I think that legacy still lives on to this day. I mean, Bill Russell was such a person that even to the current NBA stars that he eventually did get to converse with looked up to him. Looked up
yeah.
to him. I think I've recalled Kevin Garnett having some major conversations with him. But Bill Russell is one of the best of all time. And granted, you have Kareem, you have Shaq, you have David Robinson, you
Will
have all these
Chamberlain,
other, yeah, Will, yeah,
Tim
you have all these
Duncan, if
other
you think
bigs.
about it.
Oh, Tim Duncan, yeah, but
Not on
I
the
mean, truly
same.
a power forward,
He's not on the same
truly a power
spectrum when it.
forward, truly a power forward.
Yeah.
But even with solid rebounding, like I mean, the rebounding you have some of the best rebounder of all time, like Charles Barkley. Well, a shorter version of that, but Dennis Rodman.
I'm hungry, Chuck.
But but that but that as a whole, just the legacy of Bill Russell and how he ultimately shaped what certain basketball landscape is today is some of the most impactful. But we also lost another major figure in sports today as longtime iconic announcer for the Dodgers, Vince Scully, has passed away this morning at 94.
Yeah, this one was a very touching one for a lot of baseball announcers out there in the world that had experiences with him. Especially because today I was listening in the background for the Royals game against the White Sox, and Rex Hudler, Ryan Lefevre, and Steve Visiak were all talking about how great and how awesome of an improviser he was when it came to just uh, understanding the environment as it was when it came to the game and what was going on versus what he was going to talk about as a filler or like a background topic during the game. He just knew how to add on to the conversation while also still being focused on the game at hand. Like the whole chicks dig the long ball conversation. They were Ryan Lefevre and Steve Physiolog and them were talking a lot about that whole like conversation when it came to Scully explaining what the whole situation was with the chicks dig the long ball conversation with Tom Glavine and I believe it could have been I don't think it was John Smoltz. It was Tom Glavine and
Was it Max?
yeah, Greg Maddox and Tom Glavine. They were talking about how they wanted to hit home runs to try and impress this one woman in a commercial that Mark McGuire gets near the end. And so the whole thing is that the two pitchers want to become really good hitters and whenever I believe it was Maddox that hit the home run. I could be wrong. Vin Scully in his voice was talking about the whole premise of like the commercial, and then all of a sudden Maddox hits the homer, and Vin Scully treats it as if it was just like a natural thing that occurred. But when it comes to baseball and pitching, or pitchers in general, when it comes to a home run hitting or a slugging pitcher, it's very rare, but he just made it sound natural. And he's just a natural human being when it comes to just announcing and everything. But they also, Rex Hudler and Ryan Lefevre and friends were talking about their experiences on how respectful the man was, even if he seemed intimidating to the future broadcasters or people just there in the moment trying to experience what it's like to be a broadcaster. It's not super intimidating, but can feel like it at first, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
man, it got emotional in that broadcast. But I respect the process, but also respect the experiences of those people because hell, I don't even know how I would feel if I saw Vin Scully on the left side of me or the right side of me while I was broadcasting a thing. I'd probably have goosebumps and maybe be tempted to like ask for an autograph. Like you never know. The same could
Yeah,
be said for Denny Matthews too.
it's like you'd be starstruck you'd be starstruck having the honor. I mean, to even be around some great talent like that, you could be left starstruck if you don't, especially if you're not used to it. And and I mean, some of these people who got to have great experiences with Vin Scully, even Tim Kirkagen, the recent Hall of Famer in Cooperstown, actually, I think even talked, I think, with ESPN about some of the stories involving Vin Scully, and of course that iconic commercial of Chicks Dig a Long Ball back in the late '90s, when, of course, Maddox and Glavine are in their hay, and McGuire and Sosa are in the middle of a home run race.
Yeah. Also, speaking of Dodgers broadcasters or just announcers in general, more modern announcer now is Joe Davis, which I've heard a lot of his broadcasting personality in his voice from watching the backstage Dodger stuff and just listening to him on TV every once in a while. And I think he's also been a part of a few All-Star games and postseason games too. But his the way he pronounces his D's are insane. Like, it's something you would have to like experience yourself to listen to. But I don't know. The man has a great voice, and he at least doesn't try to seem like what he's talking about is like a filler when it comes to things. Kind of like how, I mean, I'm not even gonna compare him to Joe Buck, but Joe Buck is just a different person.
Yeah, yeah, I could agree on that. And the Dodgers did decide to wear a VIN patch for I think some future games involving, because of the passing of him, and ultimately, yeah, you've got, if he's not in Cooperstown already, he will be now.
I feel like they should dedicate just like a pin in general, not just for the rest of the season or the next season after that. Just like dedicate it towards him because of how much of a
Yeah.
cornerstone he was for the franchise and just for everyone else that was around him or knew
Oh,
him.
true, true. It's like the Mariners losing Niehaus. I mean, it's hard to think of any other any other ones right now off the top of my head other than Dave Niehaus for the Mariners.
It kind of reminds me of like that pin, pin that the Chiefs have for the AFC for whenever they merged. Like I feel like it should have like a somewhat big significance of that, but like not as much, but at least in a way where like people can still remember, oh yeah, Ben Scully, what a guy. Because like the Cubs with their old announcer,
Oh, Harry Carey, yeah.
yeah,
I
like
I
they do the
complete
same thing kind of.
Yeah. Yep. But now that we're in the realm of baseball, we're ready to get to the high heat and kind of get what these people really came here for.
You're damn straight. You're damn right.
All right, so today's high heat is going to be a rather extensive breakdown of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We're going to break down as far as some traded aways and acquisitions from the division by division, kind of see maybe which certain things along the way were notable out of what we see here, and then move on to the next one. And we're going to kick it off with the AL Beast and the Orioles. They traded away Trey Mancini to the Astros and Jorge Lopez to the Twins, and acquired Brett Phillips and a good amount of prospects for their farm system in the Mancini and Lopez deals, to pretty much adding more to a farm system that's already pretty much loaded. I think that this, for the Orioles, was a weird deadline, but for the way they've been playing since the deadline has occurred, it's a it's not as much of a surprise as we think it is, because they are in the middle of a youth movement.
Yeah,
And a
they've had a
lot of
lot of like Mateo and Arise specifically or Urias have been on
Yeah,
a tear,
Ramon Urias. Yep.
but there's only so much you can do with that in the long and stay hot, you know.
I mean, you still have Cedric Mullins. You still have Austin Hayes. I mean, Brett Phillips is a good spell outfielder to kind of cover any sort of base. Has enough speed to cover Seti Mall. Oh, Santander has a strong enough arm to cover Santander or Hayes, just in case you have something happen there. So there's a little bit more coverage there. They've got they've got Chirinos and Rushman at catcher.
I'm
So
honestly
I think
surprised that Chirinos didn't get dealt because he was a big name or semi big name like a year ago.
yeah, and he was a big name that probably could have been dealt if since the emergence of Adley Rushman. But it's kind of nice to have two catchers up there just in case you have something happen to Adley, who has had a little bit of who maybe as is on his road up through the farm system has had a
And
few hiccups.
the thing about Chirinos is I would feel like he was on par with Martin Maldonado, and I was kind of surprised on why the Astros needed catching, but yeah.
Well, and then we now shift over to the team in Canada, Toronto. They traded away Jordan Grushans, who who eventually becomes the Miami Marlins number 4 prospect, and acquired Whit Merrifield along with 3 relief pitchers in a bunch of smaller deals. For
Sorry about that,
Toronto,
Wit.
yeah, for Toronto not doing really a whole bunch, I think Toronto is still highly invested in winning. Yet I still think they probably could have done maybe a little bit more upgrading in the bullpen, or even, which they did a little bit, or even also maybe tweaking a little bit with possibly getting a few other prospects that may be MLB ready in flipping like a Teoscar Hernandez or something like that. But you've got yourself but Toronto is still trying to contend for a playoff spot.
I mean, even if like Whit Merrifield doesn't get the championship or like playoffs that he wants with the Blue Jays, they still have team control over him.
Yeah, and that can work a certain amount of wonders too, especially with a change of scenery that Toronto can bring.
And
However, this does come with Witt's probably going to miss a good amount of time in dealing with a vaccination.
I think he'll get jabbed, but yeah, like the last time the Blue Jays had a breakout stud when it came from moving from one MLB team to the other was Troy Tulowitzki most recently when he was traded from the Rockies to the Blue Jays, and that was during the 2015 season too.
And I don't think the Tulo trade at a much larger net panned out as much for the Blue Jays.
Right, but also Tulowitzki was dealing with injury problems for most of his career, anyways, with the Rockies, even before he went to the Blue Jays.
But wasn't there also like a major? I think it might have been an off-season thing where there was a major thing with like them bringing over the Bringer of Rain as well.
The Donaldson stuff.
Yeah, the Donaldson. Yeah, I'm trying to think of
Well,
how.
I think Donaldson was before him, anyways, but like Tulo was being brought over because they wanted to get rid of his big contract in Colorado.
Yeah.
They didn't want to pay him the big money. They were just like, okay, let's bring his potential over here. And then the Blue Jays did what they did with it. And then a couple years later, obviously he gave up and retired because of
Oh.
his deteriorating health. But then he went
Oh.
to the Yankees anyways.
Well, Donaldson was brought over as a free agent. Yeah,
I thought he was
Donaldson was.
traded by the Athletics.
Yeah, but it was an off-season deal. It was
Okay.
an off-season deal, not a deadline deal. So it operated a little differently.
Right.
But now we go to My team, the Boston Red Sox, we traded away Christian Vasquez and Jake Diekman, but the primary acquisitions that we picked up were Reese McGuire, Tommy Pham, and Eric Hosmer. And shockingly enough, we retained JD Martinez and Nate Eovaldi.
So you got Maguire, you got Pham, you got Hosmer, and you retained Martinez and Evaldi.
Ugh,
Sorry,
and
I had to put it in there. That's
no, and I think the where I am at is that I think the Hosmer deal could be sneaky good, especially because left-handed batters do thrive at Fenway.
not only that, but he didn't get a lot of playing time with San Diego once Voit became, uh,
Once
on the
Voight
roster.
became prominent,
Yeah,
but but I think I think we will get into a little bit more into why Hosmer ended up in Fenway later. I think that this is a sleeper deal, but I think it's a sleeper deal for a weird reason.
all right, let's
But
go into
I
the
was totally
Yankees.
more in the set. I was more in the setting of that we were going to deal JD Martinez, and I am shocked that we were able to keep him.
He doesn't have that much value though.
Not anymore.
That I think that's the reason why he didn't get dealt, because like he would be kind of like a senior presence, but he wouldn't do a whole lot. It's kind of like how Rolly Banez was for the Royals in 2014. He was there for like seniority and like veteran like leadership, but it was more so that he was just kind of there to like help out rather than really do a whole lot offensively.
Yeah, a DH that can mash.
Yeah.
Yeah, JD can still be a guy that can hit dingers. And Evaldi has struggled too, which kind of has led to his consideration for the trade deadline.
The Red Sox should really look into getting Big Al though, because he hits dingers.
Yeah. Oh, why don't we get the guy before him that was taking Big Daddy hacks?
I don't even remember that guy. I just remember the big
It
Chungus
was a
kid
year
from.
prior. It was a year prior. It was a year prior, and it was a bigger kid than Big Al.
I didn't even see the film for that, but I just remember the one chubby kid in the little league that was like, "I'm Big Al and I hit dingers."
Yeah, because I think it was yeah, it was a bigger kid. It was a it was definitely it was like a bigger kid from I think it was I think it was from like Maine or something like that. Because the kid was from the in the 2017 Little League World Series. Um, it was Richie Gilboy, you know, where he was a big player, and he actually did hit a homer in the Little League World Series. But he says he knows he likes to take Big Daddy hacks and wasn't afraid to tell the world. So that was the year before Big Al was saying that he hit dingers. And now we go to the Yankees, who traded away somebody who can hit the light tower power, but only has two sacrifice flies in his entire career. Joey Gallo.
Also known for his strikeout percentage being extremely high.
Thus, why the limited sacrifice flies in his career. Joey Gallo and Jordan Montgomery were traded away for the Yankees, but the Yankees were very hard at work in acquiring a lot of talent. I mean, we didn't even mention a lot of the farm players that they sent away as well, but they had Harrison Bader, Lou Trevino, Frankie Montas, Scott Frost, and Andrew Benintendi arrive in New York.
Yeah, and it makes sense why they would be able to easily get it because they have the budget. Like, there's no such thing as budget for the Yankees when it comes to how much they spend and how much they have as a franchise. It's been like that forever. And whenever they talk about, oh, we can't afford Aaron Judge or some other players, it's like that's a little BS. Like,
Oh, Daddy Warbucks isn't really in New York anymore.
even then, like, come on. You're the
You're
Yankees.
you're not.
You're one more World Series than any other freaking team, and you're telling me that, oh, you can't afford people to get good. Like, grow the F up.
Not necessarily. I think there's a point. I think the Yankees. I mean, granted, it's still somewhat Steinbrenner owned, but it's not the man behind the evil empire.
They are the
It's not.
evil empire.
I mean, they are the evil empire, but they're not necessarily. They're not necessarily like the way back when, like New York Bankies type of thing. I'm sorry, Daddy Warbucks is currently in California, not New York. New
Well,
York,
maybe you
the
should tell that
Yankees
to the
have been.
Yankees fans that think only other than the best for their franchise. Just saying.
Oh,
I'm
I
just
mean,
coming from a dirty Royals fan that gets beat by the Yankees
oh,
more than
but
I would like to admit.
I'm seeing that. Like, I'm seeing that. Okay, they were able to get a lot of these players because they've actually been developing their homegrown talent well to be able to ship them off. I mean, they're doing that. They're not buying them now. They're trading for them. They're bartering now.
I feel like it's kind of ironic that the Yankees have a really good farm system, yet they end up trading their farm system for higher end players. I feel like that's like the go to for them so that eventually they could get the big market guys that they want, like
To
a
an ex-
Trevino.
to certain extents, that's kind of been what the Red Sox have done just to try and keep up sometimes. But the Red Sox also have had a good abundance of great homegrown talent as well.
Like Joan
Devers,
Moncada or Moncada
well,
from back in the day.
we shipped him off before he even became a thing.
Right.
But I was saying Devers, Bogarts, Benintendi is technically a homegrown head Red Sox talent.
Yeah, and then he got traded.
Mookie Betts,
Mm-hmm.
Mookie Betts was homegrown Red Sox
MLB,
talent.
baby.
So I mean, you got a good amount of homegrown talent can come from Boston and thrive.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's still something. It's just now the Yankees are doing it too, which honestly, you need a good balance of prospects that you can trade away and prospects you can really see as great talents in your homegrown farm system. That's kind of how baseball works. And one who is and a team that's really been known for doing that lately and having them retain themselves around for a while in spite of not having a huge payroll are the Tampa Bay Rays, who really they only traded away Major League Brett Phillips and acquired David Peralta and Jose Siri. I also feel like this David Peralta deal is a sleeper deal because the Trop is a hitter's ballpark, and I also would say that the Trop also does favor left-handed hitting. I mean, granted that it's a little more balanced, but the Trop can favor left-handed hitting. I think Tampa's got maybe a few games left in Boston. Fenway favors left-handed hitting. The Yankee Stadium's a wind tunnel. Camden Yards has a shorter porch in right field. So left-handed hitting does have some favorable things. But I think David Peralta ultimately, again, I think may have been affected by the shift, which is about to be banned.
I honestly don't know how to feel about David Peralta being a Ray, but at the same time, Austin Meadows is also a Ray at one point and thrived. I just don't know the potential of Peralta. I haven't seen him really strive, but also I haven't seen him strive with a semi better team than the Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks were a small market technically, but the Rays are obviously known for being a small market and just plug and play.
and being pretty daggone good at it too. I mean, if it's good enough that all of a sudden you send one of your executives, Heim Bloom, to Boston to try and restructure a lot of that money, that Moneyball system into the into Fenway, the Rays must be doing something right.
I think it's mostly luck, though, in my opinion.
Oh, of course, a good amount of that's gonna be affected by luck, favorable results. But you also have like you also got to have a solid development plan in your farm system to be able to get these players ready to go.
Yeah.
And it looks like they do an excellent job of that, and looks like they also draft well too. So that as a whole is Tampa's been really right up there hanging around in that top of the AL East for a reason.
Yeah. For sure,
And
for
now we go
sure.
to the Yep, and now we go to the AL Central, where the Cleveland Guardians, minus like stuff that was very not very quiet, they did nothing.
All
Which
they did was
for
pretty much guard their franchise, I guess, by doing absolutely nothing, just standing their guard.
they were saying, "All hail the Magic Conch."
Oh, Magic Con Show,
Who
who
do we
should we
do
trade
now?
from our franchise? Nothing.
Nothing. Oh my! But it does not. At least very little is affected with the Guardians, and the Guardians still are hanging around, which for them to do nothing is odd.
Let's be honest, they're kind of just there. Like they just exist. Yes, they still contend. I'm not saying that they're a crappy team by any means, but they just exist.
I mean, they are a team that is right now at a fire sale waiting to happen.
Yet.
It's no, I just said a fire sale waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It's just we don't know when or if that Guardians core is going to combust.
And it would have to start with J Ram, but we don't know when that would happen.
Actually, I think it starts with Shane Bieber.
True, true. Yeah, you're right.
I think it starts with Shane Bieber because
Because
that's
the
the ace of the rotation.
less control too with the team. Like he hasn't signed an extension or anything. He's just kind of there.
But I
So
was also going to say that along with that, it also is that what's the one thing that Cleveland normally tends to trade away first before really trading away a position player? Normally the ace of the rotation.
right,
Ask
like
Corey Kluber.
CC
Well,
Sabathia, Corey
CC
Kluber.
Sabathia, CC Sabathia, Corey Kluber. As far as like notable pitchers in the rotation, Andrew
Andrew
Miller.
Miller, yeah,
Yeah, they're normally gonna.
Carrasco,
Carlos Carrasco, I think was due to go. Like he was
yeah,
due to go a lot sooner than that. But I was notably talking the Sabathia, the Miller, the Kluber.
the Cliff
Yeah, they're more than likely
Lees.
gonna. Oh, Cliff Lee, yeah, that's another one that
I'm
really
just
sticks out as well.
spitballing, but yeah,
And then the White Sox, who really didn't do that much either. Like they also had a quiet deadline and basically getting rid of Reese McGuire for Jake Diekman.
they need
But
relief pitching if they want to survive.
oh yeah, and to get it from the left side, that was kind of effective for them. I
Yeah,
mean,
their
is it
offense is not has the White Sox offense has been pretty damn decent. And coming from a Royals fan, they whipped our ass the past couple of games that they've had against us. So, and they're like their bullpen was really not affected all that much.
yeah? And Diekman probably needed a change of scenery to get out of Fenway.
Yeah, like especially as a older pitcher that pitches lefty, probably not that good for at Fenway, whereas um, at guarantee rate field or anywhere else, it's probably better for him anyways. Like as I mean, he was still in the AL anyways, but Diekman, as far as staying or going where he needs to go, is it's good for him to be on a contending team. Not that the Red Sox weren't contending, but it's just better odds, I guess you could say. But yeah.
And the next two teams that we're going to talk about were major sellers in the deadline. The Detroit Tigers basically traded away Robbie Grossman and Michael Fulmer. And the Kansas City Royals traded away Andrew Benintendi, Cam Gallagher, Whit Merrifield, really to only have Luke Weaver be a major pickup for them.
Yeah, and then we had a bunch of prospects from the Whit Merrifield trade with Max
Oh yeah,
Castillo and some other guys, but I was expecting more from the Royals to trade. Yes, there was a lot of people on Twitter talking about how Scott Barlow should be traded and how Josh Staumont and Michael A. Taylor should have been traded, but let's be honest here. It's up to the general manager to figure out what the hell to do with all these guys, and I think as far as keeping the youth plus the players that may or may not have been very advertised friendly to be traded, uh, it was probably for the best because Scott Barlow he's had games where his control has been pretty bad more than the games
good.
that he's had good, and then like Stallmont is still on the fence too. So like, and then Michael A. Taylor has been kind of a one of those players where it's like he can defend pretty damn well, but when it comes to his
Not a gifted
hitting,
hitter.
and he was pretty damn good with the Nationals when it came to like the playoff stuff. Like, but other than that, like that was years ago, and the Nationals aren't really contending. And seeing that as a market guy that's looking for a backup outfielder or maybe someone that could work in their outfield, I don't know if I would really want Michael A. Taylor.
It
Espe-
depends. If you're wanting somebody who's more defensive, yeah, taking a Michael A. Taylor is effective.
and it
But
can be, but like also if you want, like you could have had a Harrison Bader in that discussion, you could have had someone else, but at the end of the day, if you want someone that can play kind of like Lorenzo Cain did back in the day, you got a Michael A. Taylor. But also, I think it was partly also because the Royals had a contract or a contract extension with Michael A. Taylor, and maybe those clubs weren't wanting to pay for that.
as much of that salary.
Yeah, for that. I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was very cost effective for most teams, but I'm glad that Benintendi, for what it's worth, he was really good for what we had for him. But and then also Cam Gallagher, the man was good, but not in the way of like offensively, but defensively he was really good. Whit Merrifield was a freaking stud. It was just that at certain points, there were many times he was told like, "Hey, you may or may not get traded," but it never really happened until now. But
They held on to him too long.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we got Luke Weaver, but it wasn't because of any of these three guys. It was because of Emmanuel Rivera, which was a third baseman that played in certain spurts for us and did some things. And to me, he seems like a younger Nelson Cruz, but I don't know how he'll transition with the Diamondbacks. But I hope Luke Weaver is better than what he has been in the past few years, because he was originally starting with the St. Louis Cardinals and then got traded to the Diamondbacks for the Paul Goldschmidt trade.
Yeah, that that as a whole was a deal that, I mean, it led to Goldie, and Goldie now, look at him, he's an MVP, or going to be the MVP of the NL, hopefully. And then now we go to the Minnesota Twins, who really only traded away a prospect as a major thing, and then they pick up Jorge Lopez from the Orioles and Tyler Mahle from the Reds. We're kind of need to speed a little bit of this up,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
but we've
Twins,
already
they're
mentioned.
looking alright.
Yep.
As far as pitching.
Yep. I mean, they bolstered that rotation, and I think it was a rotation that probably could have used a bolstering. And for them to kind of not deal with a lot of the trading away that they could have done, it actually benefited them to actually just, few smaller deals to try and ship away some prospects and try and pitch their way to a
Especially
playoff
if
spot.
Sonny Gray isn't 100% and you don't know his potential later on as far as the postseason. Like, obviously, it's probably better to be safe than sorry with more pitching depth. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, now we'll go
And
to
now
the AL
AL
West
West.
with the
The
Oakland
Oakland
Athletics.
Athletics, really, they acquired two top 10 prospects in their farm system while getting rid of a couple of major players that have already been mentioned. But notably, Sean Murphy stayed put, which it's a little hard for us to really see the valid point of Sean Murphy staying put when you've got Shea Langoliers waiting in the wings there in Oakland, just almost soon ready to be called up. I think basically with Sean Murphy staying put this year, if Shea Langoliers gets closer to being a major leaguer at this point, or from this point heading into next year, I could see Sean Murphy getting dealt. Especially if Shea Langoliers is ready to be called up and is set to be called up.
I think it was more of a shave of the budget, as they're also they were the original Moneyball team.
Yeah. I mean, granted, there is a little bit of shaving a budget, but I'm saying that next year, Sean Murphy could be in this same position again.
Yeah,
That was all I was getting at there.
yeah, I wasn't arguing. I was just yeah.
We
Um,
had no notable trades from the Texas Rangers. And the Los Angeles Angels traded away Brandon Marsh, Noah Syndergaard, and Raisel Iglesias to notably pick up Logan O'Hop, who was the number one prospect in their farm.
I was
So
honestly
we'll,
surprised that Brandon Marsh got traded because he seemed like so new to the scene of
yeah,
baseball.
or at least to the show, that is.
Yeah, like I didn't see him going, but I kind of saw Noah Syndergaard and Iglesias going. But I just didn't know how far the Angels are gonna go as far as trading because they're one of the big market teams that does stuff, but yet their season hasn't been what they hoped for.
And the Angels honestly just need to just blow it up at this point. I they retained Shohei Otani. That was a notable thing. And then we were seeing a whole lot of speculation that Otani could have been dealt. They've hung on to Otani at least for one more year of arbitration. I wouldn't be surprised here that since there's only 1 year of arb on him, that next year, if Otani does not get dealt, that he becomes an unrestricted free agent and goes elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where that lands, to be honest.
It could really go anywhere at this point. And for the Seattle Mariners, they traded away two of their top 10 in the farm that now is number 1 in the Reds farm and number 7 in that farm system for primarily picking up Luis Castillo. They also picked up Jake Lamb in a small deal with the Dodgers. I think that Luis Castillo is a big rotation help for the Mariners, but I do think them getting rid of Noelvi Marte in order to do that ultimately I think hurts their potential bottom line when it comes to, oh, maybe JP Crawford's injured at short. You need somebody to step up. You've got the number 1 prospect in your farm system right there with Noelvi Marte. If he's ready to go, he can get there. He can get there to the show and play hard.
I feel like the Luis Castillo trade reminds me of the Johnny Cueto trade to the Royals a little bit. I think Luis Castillo is going to shine with the Mariners.
I think there is going to be a feel that kind of leads toward that direction. It just depends on who all else the Mariners have in that stretch. And I think the Mariners now are probably one of those 3 teams that could get a wild card spot. And last but not least, the Houston Astros decided to trade away Jose Siri and Jake Odorizzi to get Christian Vasquez, Will Smith, and Trey Mancini. I mean, a lot of smaller upgrades.
To be honest, did Maldonado go down for the season or something, or is he just not really active?
If Maldonado's hurt and not back by postseason, Vasquez has experience enough
I just didn't know
that
if Maldonado was injured or not. That's why I was confused on why
I'm
they
not
got
100%
Vasquez.
sure, but Vasquez does give them good coverage.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
honestly, the biggest thing that's really needed in that case is good coverage.
Yeah. I like how they got Will Smith and Mancini as well. Mancini should help them more often than not, but we will see.
Yep. And now we shift leagues to the NL. And I know we talked about the Angels earlier. Noah Syndergaard and Brandon Marsh both went to the Phillies. And I started with the Phillies because we have to run this whole thing. That Noah Syndergaard now has to make some amends. Has to mend fences with a mascot. Has to So Noah Syndergaard once stole the 4-wheeler from the Philly Fanatic and wheeled it around while the Philly Fanatic had to chase him. Syndergaard posted a tweet with this clip that says, "Well, this is awkward." So now that Syndergaard is playing for the team that has the Philly Fanatic as a mascot, there's a little bit of fence mending that is going to have to go on between the former Mets ace or the former Mets pitcher and the Phillies mascot. You want to take a team there, Ruckus?
All right. My team that I want to take is the Nationals for trading
I
away
was
in
wanting
a.
to I was wanting to have that as a last but not least because we were working our way through because the Nationals because that's just a huge deal. Like that's a deal so huge that we've got a whole bunch of smaller stuff there, but
I kind of wanted to get the Big Kahuna done first so that we could get the rest of these going.
Oh, you saved the best for last, man.
Eh.
But we'll roll with it. That the Childish Bambino has now been traded to a team that we will mention later. But the acquisitions were Mackenzie Gore, Robert Hassel, who becomes the top prospect of the farm, James Wood, who is another one in the top 5, Jarlin Susanna, who is another one in the top 10, Luke Voigt, and C.J. Abrams. But there's a small little caveat as to how the Nationals ended up with Luke Voigt.
And we just got done with the AL East, didn't we? Obviously.
Well, we started with the AL East, and the caveat that was with Luke Voigt was due to I was wanting you to kind of roll along with that and kind of saying that I was going with the caveat and you were to reveal the caveat that
So with
led to
that
Luke.
caveat, Eric Hosmer, instead of being traded to the Nationals from San Diego in his no trade clause, was sent to the Boston Red Sox later
Well,
on.
well, he chose not to waive it. He chose not to waive it for this
Right.
deal.
I'm honestly happy for Eric Hosmer when it comes to the Red Sox trade, but anyways,
I think that in net turned out to be the better decision for Hosmer, but Nationals Park is still also a hitter's ballpark. And plus, Josh Bell was already leaving the team, so you were already guaranteed time at first base no matter what.
I would have rather liked the aspect of the experience with the Red Sox, though. To be honest, the
Oh yeah,
Nationals
oh
is
yeah,
kind of like meh, whereas the Red Sox, it's like got a history that feels good.
yeah, and a park that benefits left-handed batters too. So I mean, not that Nationals Park doesn't benefit left-handed batters, and
Nationals,
truly a hitter's ballpark. Yeah, uh, I see Nationals Park as more of a hitter's ballpark.
yeah.
And now we go to the Atlanta Braves, the defending champs, who may have possibly made a couple of notable moves that did a little bit. They traded away Will Smith, but eventually get Raisel Iglesias, Jake Odorizzi. But the biggest move that they made was that they extended Austin Riley to a to now a big money contract. I mean, granted, I think it was only a 10-year deal, but he goes now until he's 34. So he has an opportunity to get another maybe smaller money contract, but still, if he's playing at the high level that he has currently, when he's 34, he may very well get another decent sized contract.
Yep, and that deal is 10 years, $212 million, which is a $21.2 million per year
And
contract.
that for him is a steal. That is a steal.
And that's through
Even
the
for
2032 season too, which is
Yeah, even for that being
ridiculous.
10 years. Even for that being 10 years. He could have gotten a shorter contract that was larger
Honestly,
in
it
terms
probably
of
would really
per
be 8
year.
years plus whatever arbitration or whatever no trade clause goes through too, right?
And now, did that deal also have some opt out?
Let me look.
That deal also
Uh,
have some opt out.
have announced that we have signed third baseman Austin Riley, the largest contract in history. The guaranteed portion will run through 2032, and the deal includes an option for the 2033 season priced at $20 million. The contract, which begins next season, will pay Riley $15 million for the 2023 season, $21 million for 2024, and then $22 million per season from 2025 through 2032. The deal will run at least through Riley's age 36 season and will cover 3 arbitration years and 7 free agent seasons.
Wow, so that
And
is
Riley is
still.
currently 25 and is enjoying an exceptional 2022 season.
Oh yeah, so yeah, this is pretty much his big money contract. Is it as large as some of the ones that people have? But he's not a major face of the franchise like a Trout or a Harper, or he's not a $300 million player. He's not even
Let alone
he's
a
not
half
even a
billion.
400 he's not even a $500 million player like Soto thinks he is. But Austin Riley can do exactly everything that a $400 million player can do effectively for really half the price.
Yeah.
So I think so that's why I said it is a steal.
Oh, for sure. Kind of like the seal was for Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. But
Still
yeah,
a $500 million deal.
right.
That was a
Yeah,
$500 million deal, but you actually paid a half a bill. You actually are set to pay over time a $500 million for.
yeah.
No, like this is not the same. This is not the same. The Patrick Mahomes deal is more like what would be what a Juan Soto deal would be, not an Austin Riley deal.
Anyways, we should probably move on.
All right, but the Mets really not much notable as far as what they really traded away, and a lot of the names that they grabbed, like Daniel Vogelbach, Darren Ruff, Tyler Naquin, not a bunch of huge names. The Marlins really traded away nothing of note, but acquired Jordan Groshans, who was the number 4 prospect, who becomes the number 4 prospect of their farm, and they kept Pablo Lopez, who had some rumors of being dealt. And that should conclude the NL East. Into the NL Central, the Pittsburgh Pirates really traded away Daniel Vogelbach, Jose Quintana, and Chris Stratton. The Cubs also did a bit of selling with trading away Michael Gibbons, David Robertson, and Chris Martin, while still hanging on to Wilson Contreras and Ian Happ. The Cardinals sent away Harrison Bader, of course, to the Yankees, while acquiring Jordan Montgomery, Chris Stratton, and Jose Quintana. And now another team that did a lot of moving around, the Reds. And I'm going to want to stop at the Reds simply because they traded away Brandon Drury and Luis Castillo while acquiring three major prospects in their top 20 that are now in the top 20 of their farm. Which being Noel V. Marte, Edwin Arroyo from the Mariners, and Christian Encarnacion Strand from the Minnesota Twins. The Brewers trading away Josh Hader, much to the shock of Devin Williams.
Yeah, that was a
Well,
big one for me.
and picking up some of those other players that were from the San Diego Padres, which the Padres were the team that acquired Juan Soto and Josh Hader and Brandon Drury, while also extending Joe Musgrove. The Dodgers really only acquired Joey Gallo. The Giants only had the Darren Ruff or J.D. Davis swap. The Diamondbacks traded away David Peralta while acquiring nothing. While still hanging on to Madison Bumgarner and Joe Mantiply, and the Rockies did.
Nothing.
I'll let you sit. I'll let you sit. And the Rockies were relying on the Magic Conch.
Well,
All
not really
right.
relying. They just kind of had it there, just
Yeah.
chilling.
Yeah. So, Ruckus, who are some winners of this deadline that you would notably state?
All right, so my winner is probably definitely the Padres.
Oh, well, you would say as far as like the winners, like we're just going through like the notable
Oh,
winners
okay,
here.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, so we have the Padres,
Padres, the
we have the Padres, the
Yankees.
Yankees, the Astros, the Braves, and I also put in the farm systems that were helped a lot in the Reds, the Orioles, and the Nationals. Some teams that we considered losers in this deadline were the Dodgers, Cubs, Rockies, Guardians, and Cardinals. And so, Ruckus, you said your best buyer was?
The San Diego Padres.
Hmm. Yeah, and of course, because they pretty much went on pretty much a shopping spree with this deal.
And honestly, when don't they go for a shopping spree?
I mean, it's Cali. They can do that. They can get away with that a little bit. But I took a Texas team in this sense in this best buyer because they were a team that maybe didn't spend a whole lot of money or spent a whole lot, but they bought somewhat sensibly. And I think the sensible buys ultimately, I think, panned out into more success for the Houston Astros. I am gonna take, while San Diego spent a huge amount, I'm taking the Astros who spent significantly less and probably got like a better return on their investment. And Ruckus, who would you have as your best seller?
I would have to say the Oakland Athletics, mainly because they shaved off the rest of what they needed to with Frankie Montas and Lou Trevino. Um, I really figured, because yes, they during the offseason they traded Matt Chapman and
Matt
Sean
Olson.
Manaea and Adams
Oh, you
and
mean Matt Olson?
Matt Olson. I thought you said Adams. My dad.
I
Uh,
said Matt Olson.
okay. I thought you said Adams. Anyways, but yeah, they traded Matt Olson, Sean Manaea, and Matt Chapman during the offseason, but they really needed to get Montas and Lou Trevino off their payroll because they were very valuable to certain teams. So that's why I picked the seller as Athletics.
I'm gonna say that the best seller for me is the Cincinnati Reds. How else would you have gotten a few great prospects in your top 20 of your farm system without having to sell some of the players that you did? It may not necessarily be the best return on your investment up front, but it's like you're selling off a big money thing to have money coming in that is almost in like a savings account, and that savings account being that farm system. As the interest rate builds on that, you then have more money to eventually work with down the line. So that is why I'm going to say my winner for the best seller, and ultimately because you can also do a little bit with Kyle Farmer behind the plate if you don't want to do anything with Tyler Stevenson. There's a lot more building that the Reds can do down the line that can benefit them. Granted, is the team going to be that great? No. But they could luck out and maybe even find that needle inside of a haystack and have this team pay off.
Yeah.
And what would you consider a sleeper deal? And I'll give you a heads up. I have two.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Um, I think the sleeper deal had to be with the pitching for the Cardinals, and that is with Jose Quintana and Chris Stratton. Jose Quintana has been kind of on a downward spiral, but he's also playing for the Pirates. But in general, like he was kind of okay with the Cubs, and then went down to the Pirates because he was a semi decent value for what you were getting, but I think he could probably shine with the Cardinals. We'll have to see. But also, you get a good value option in Chris Stratton as a reliever for the Cardinals, and I feel like that's a really good sleeper deal for getting those two.
Yep. And I have two hitters that are on my sleeper list. And they are as follows: David Peralta to the Rays, and and actually I will have Eric Hosmer to Boston in my sleeper list. Because I think that deal is going to be sneaky good. I mean, if there was one thing that Eric Hosmer did as far as like a good return on that investment was choosing to waive his no trade clause to Boston. I mean, I'm a little picky about that because yeah, he probably should have just taken that and waived it to DC, but Fenway is overall a net larger benefit. But now that the trade deadline has happened and MLB The Show has now updated their rosters for that deadline, we now go to the simulation where we now can talk about some of the sport video game things that have been going on. We are skipping setting the lineup and sport history this week as the trade deadline extended a lot of conversation for the podcast, so we decided to float those items. But the simulation, the MLB The Show has added the July Players of the Month, which they unveiled earlier in the month of a 98 overall Craig Biggio for the Retro Lightning. And to start out, you have Andres Munoz, JT Romuto, Cole Irvin, Jose Miranda, Brady Singer, and Ramon Urias at the 95 tier. The 97 tier has Matt Chapman, Matt Carpenter, and Ryan Presley. And Craig Biggio is your Retro Lightning. And your regular Lightning is Austin Riley, who just got a bag. The Shark Conquest, which is known for bringing a lot of very, very high value packs into the market, was brought in. A new mini seasons objectives that, just a heads up for any of you who play, your mini seasons objectives will require a lot more with Reds and Cubs players. There are two mystery goals that I have not figured out what they are yet. And they are under the titles of Free Pass, Free Pack, and No Mendoza Line. I have not figured out what causes you to get those packs. But one of the major things that's coming up is that those mini seasons things are good until August 30th. You have double XP from now until the 9th of August. And then a Field of Dreams program will hit on the 9th. That is a 10-day program. And in the middle of that program, on August 12th, will come a 99 overall Ken Griffey Jr.
A day after my birthday, hooray!
So there is a lot of things that are going on in MLB The Show, and we're still about a couple weeks away from Madden. And trust me, I know that I'm going to get a little bit of a break from MLB The Show to take part in that 10-hour trial for Madden that is on my on my Xbox.
Apparently, they're saying that it's going to be a less buggy experience. We'll have to figure that out ourselves.
Who knows? Yep. But now that we're through the simulation, we now will have an MLB themed jersey math as our war room, and it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one. But Ruckus and I each would come up with math problems featuring jersey numbers of MLB players in history that were trade pieces during a deadline deal. But those deals were only if the player was as a major leaguer. If the player was traded as a prospect in the deal for a major leaguer, the prospect's the prospect jersey number cannot be used even if that player is currently a major leaguer. Now, jersey numbers can be used from either the old team or the new team, but the year of the trade must be included in the deal, or in the talk of wherever you set it. So that would be the year that the deal was done must be included. Most points wins, and we each will have 3 problems to solve. And Ruckus, I will have you go first. Will you want problem A, B, or C?
The
You said B,
C as in crocodile.
C. Okay. You have Cliff Lee from the Phillies, the year of this deal being 2009. Mark Teixeira of the Rangers, this deal occurring in 2007. And Dave Roberts of the Red Sox in 2004.
What? Who was the 2004 one?
Dave Roberts.
Dave Roberts.
Dave Roberts, Red Sox. Yeah. Figuring that out, Ruckus?
I was trying to get the calculator to work. So is my total 47?
No, you're not even close. You are not even close. All of these have to be addition.
Because I had 18 for the first guy, the second guy.
For Cliff Lee?
Or actually, no, not 18. 23 was my guess for Cliff Lee.
23 is in the problem, but not for Cliff Lee. That is a correct 23 is a correct number. You just don't have it on the correct player.
Dang it. I'm guessing that was for the second player then.
Yep, that would have been for Mark Teixeira.
For some reason, I thought his was lower. Like 18. That's why I put 18 for.
Teixeira was a first baseman. So so you have Cliff Lee for the Phillies with number, and this being that even though he had 2 different numbers for the Phillies in 2 different stints, the first one he had number 34. Then you had number 23 for Mark Teixeira with the Rangers. And then for Dave Roberts was 31. The correct answer
Oh.
the correct answer is 88.
I guessed Dave Roberts to be number 6 because of the fact that he would be speedy, and usually speedy players don't get higher numbers. At least in my experience. I don't know.
You're going to have one small problem with that number 6 being for Boston. That number's retired in Boston. That would have
Ted
never
Williams.
No, that would have never have happened. That would have been because of Pesky. For Johnny
Okay.
Pesky, who the pole is named after in right. Ted Williams is actually number 9.
See, I would have known that unless you told me.
Yep. All right. So fire me your first one there, Ruckus.
All right. So these are all trade deadlines that happen, or this is from the 2007 trade deadline.
So all of them are 2007.
Correct. So the
Okay.
first one is Milton Bradley of the San Diego Padres being dealt to the Padres, I should say.
Okay. So
And
Milton
then
Bradley.
the second one is Luis Castillo to the Mets. And then Ty Wigginton to the Astros.
It said Milton Bradley 44. It said Milton Bradley with 44. So the second one was which one?
Luis Castillo.
Right. That's probably going to be a 1. 45 was Wigington. 18. I'm going to say 63.
Incorrect. So Milton Bradley was a 15. Luis
Oh
Castillo you
wow.
got right with a 1.
Yeah, I knew that one.
And then Ty Wigginton was 21. So the total should have been 37.
37. Yeah. I knew I went too high on Milton Bradley. I would have been just a little bit off on because I was thinking 18 for Wigington, not 21.
Yeah.
All right, so A or B.
Let's go with A this time.
Okay. So, yes, I'm giving you another Red Sox one. Steve Pierce of the Red Sox for the Red Sox in 2018. Adding along with Fred McGriff of the Padres in 1993, and then we will be rounding it out with Lou Brock of the Cardinals in 1964.
I'm still trying to figure out Pierce. And then the other two are pitchers, right?
No,
What was the name of the second one?
the Crime Dog, Fred McGriff, and this would be his Padres number in '93.
And then the third one was.
Lou Brock. The deal was in 1964, but it was the one that sent him to St. Louis. And you are needing the number that he wore in St. Louis.
Alright, my total is going to be 83.
You were within 10, or you would have been inside 10 at that point. What did you have for Steve Pierce?
I had him as 13.
Mm,
And then I
that actually is
had 22 as the second one, and then 35 as the next one.
you had you would
Or
have had
48, my bad. My bad.
25, 25 for Pierce, 29 for Fred McGriff, and 20 for Lou Brock. Correct answer is 74.
Oh well.
All
I
right.
really didn't know for any of them, but that's a good one.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I tried to give you as many of them that were like, because Lou Brock was definitely a major MLB The Show one. And Steve Pierce was like, okay, that one probably shouldn't be too far out of the realm because it was within the last 5 years.
Alright, which one do you want now? You already got through the first one. What's.
Um, I'm on your second.
Alright, you want to do the second one?
Yeah.
Alright, so this one is a 2008 trade deadline.
Oh, you did all yours in the same year. I did different years.
So, for this first one, It was the 2008 Yankees for the first one. Um,
Who's the player?
he was the catcher. For the Red Sox, it
Who's who's
was
who's the player?
ah crap. It was Ivan Rodriguez. And
Rodriguez.
then the next one was Jason Bay. And then the next one was Ken Griffey Jr. for 2008.
And that would be Ken Griffey Jr. going to the White Sox.
Yep.
Okay, so Ken Griffey Jr. going to the White Sox was 3. I know that. I think Ivan Rodriguez. He could not wear 7 because 7 was retired. Soriano was not there at that point, so 12 was an option. So I think 12, 3. And the second one you said was Jason Bay.
Correct.
39.
Incorrect.
Oh, how far off was I?
So Pudge Rodriguez was 12. Jason Bay was
12.
44.
Oh,
Ken
44.
Griffey Ken
Oh, I
Griffey
missed it
was
by 20.
Ken Griffey was 17.
17?
Yeah,
Wait.
for the White Sox.
Hold up.
If you look up Baseball Reference, it was 17.
Huh.
Because then after that, he played for the Mariners to like end his career.
Uh, he got shifted to 3. He got shifted to 3 later on in Cincy. I knew one of those was 3. I knew he shifted to 3 at a certain point, but yeah, so 44 for Bay. I completely missed that. I thought it was 24, but I forgot that Manny Ramirez was still there. And then I knew Pudge was 12.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at least getting one number in the thing 100% right.
Yeah.
Okay. And your last one. CC Sabathia for the Brewers 2008. Ricky Henderson, Yankees in 1989. David Justice, Yankees 2000.
Man, this the one for CC is really getting to me right now. My total. Hold on. My total is 58.
Incorrect. CC Sabathia's number never changed throughout his entire career.
What was his number?
52.
God dang it! I thought it was like. I thought it was 32 to be honest.
You had Ricky Henderson. What is the most iconic number for Ricky Henderson?
I'm going to stab myself in the foot and say 30 or 23.
24.
I got
But
close
then
there.
David Justice with the Yankees wore number 28.
Dang it.
50,
I thought it was
52 plus
12.
20. 52 plus 24 plus 28 is 104. It was 104. And
This
the
is what you
and
get
that's
when I don't cheat.
and this is why I looked and I said that CC Sabathia never changed a single jersey number in his entire career. Oh my. Oh, and what's your last one, Ruckus?
All right, so my third one is from the 2004 trade deadline. So
Ugh.
Rich Aurilia from the San Diego Padres, Carl Everett of the White Sox, and Octavio Dotel of the 2004 Oakland A's.
God. Oh my god. Now I'm wishing you would have given me probably or wish we would have tried to figure out Orlando Cabrera. Oh my. But the 2004 deadline where you have Octavio Dotel for the A's. Why am I thinking that's somewhere in the 50s? Thinking like 52 for Dotel. Carl Everett. I think that one's an 8. And well, who was the third one other than Dotel and Everett?
Aurilia.
Rich Aurilia. 90.
Incorrect. So the total for that one should have been 57.
Oh, wow.
Rich Aurilia was 21.
Oh,
Carl
21. Wow.
Carl Everett was number 8, and Octavio
Ah,
Dotel was 28.
oh my I every single one of them. I'm gonna say every single one of them. I got one player out of the entire set right. It was Luis Castillo the first one, Ivan Rodriguez the second one, and Carl Everett that time. I knew I said that Carl Everett was 8. I'm like,
Yeah, it's been
I
a rough one.
that was a rough round, but the hard part about that is I was trying to give you like I knew that you had said Mark Teixeira. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put Mark Teixeira somewhere in there.
I'm just
Dave
going
Robert,
hard in the paint.
yeah, you're going hard in the paint and trying to find deeper cuts. I'm trying to find like stuff that I know is at least reachable for you if you knew some of the players around. And the funny thing is that the David Justice that is the second half hero card is in MLB The Show. Yeah, the David Justice one's an MLB The Show card.
I personally just haven't really been paying attention. That's my problem.
Yeah, I mean Jersey Math, and I honestly think that Jersey Math, especially for baseball, can be tricky because there's so many changing numbers involved with that. Meanwhile, with like basketball, you have like certain numbers, or even football. Football is kind of one of the easiest ones to do it with because you have number restrictions to an extent.
Yeah. So am I on the last one, or are
Um,
we done?
no, we've already gone through 3 each.
Okay.
Yeah, we both went over, which which normally for me it's like a horrible run, but I felt like I was a lot closer on track than I was if I would have gotten all 3 of them. If I It was just hard for me to get all 3 of them. So while we were more so duds today on the war room side of things, it's now time to go through our weekly stud and dud. Ruckus, take it away.
All right. So my stud and honorable mention, which will be known later. So my stud has to be a defensive end that hasn't really gotten a whole lot of praise because of how he has played in the season. This player is named Frank Clark. He was during the past couple weeks. He has been helping the future pass rusher of the Kansas City Chiefs, George Karlaftis, and teaching him how to figure out certain schemes and things, with also teaching him certain techniques into blocking and or trying to get away from the linemen of the offensive line for certain teams. I feel like that's better. It's better than hit. It's better than Frank Clark just literally just going, "Hey, I'm here," and then just like not really paying attention to the future stars of the defensive line. I think it's a good thing for Frank Clark to teach future players like George Karlaftis how to get through. But anyways, the honorable mention I have is Sky Moore, because he was asked about an injury on Twitter that he sustained, and Sky Moore was like, "You know what? I'm actually good. Don't worry about me. Chill out. There's something else that you should probably cover instead of me." But Sky Moore handled it like a champ.
Okay, we going to my studs now, or are we doing?
Go for it, dog.
Yep. All right. So my honorable mention goes to Nick Zakelj for doing a pretty good impersonation of Stone Cold Steve Austin with a stunner, and his teammate Sam Schlitter for being a good sport in the fun during training camp in San Francisco for the San Francisco 49ers. But my stud goes to Joey Meneses, a 30-year-old rookie for the Nationals who was called up in the aftermath of the Juan Soto trade after 12 years of being in the minors and in international baseball. So in his debut of the show, he hit a home run in his first major league hit, which I believe also occurred on his first pitch he saw in a 5-1 victory over the Mets on Tuesday night. Like, you don't get a story like that very often. How long he's going to be up in the MLB, Lord knows. But to have that type of moment in within your first few hours of being a major leaguer, that's unforgettable.
Kind of reminds me of the Kyle Zimmer stuff that happened a couple weeks or a couple years ago, where he battled injuries and then finally became a major leaguer.
Or even Trey Mancini with the cancer that he was dealing with, or any like those type of adversity stories that kind of come along come alongside your way. And that to me, just from a perspective, just meant a lot more.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
But then now we've got some duds to go along with it. What you got, Ruckus?
All right, so mine happened literally today, near the early portion of the day. So the Chicago White Sox grounds crew doesn't really didn't really do a very good job when it came to the mound presence, as far as drawing the mound and also drawing the first and third base sides of those areas when it comes to the defenders and or the players that are running around through the first base and third base side. So in context, there was a weather delay, a most likely a rain delay, which it was, that lasted about an hour for at a guarantee rate field, and around an hour and 15 minutes later, the game came back on, and the grounds crew didn't realize, oh, we need to use actual dry dirt to like help make it to where the dirt around those surrounding areas wasn't like super wet, to where maybe a player could end up getting hurt because of the fact that they were pulling a muscle or who knows what. But as far as the pitcher, both pitchers, both Brady Singer and Lance Lynn, had issues with the mound when it came to getting their grip with their feet, as far as just trying to throw the ball with their. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into pitching, but Brady Singer
Yep.
and Lance Lynn, that's a big bad issue when it comes to not only the opposing team but the home team complaining about how the mound is was not good, but
Yep.
it is what it is. And the dud there is just the grounds crew, because compared to other teams like the Royals or really any other team, they probably could have done a little bit more effort into it. But that's my dud.
Okay, so I have an honorable mention for Keenan Allen for you trying to use imitation as the sincerest form of flattery with the Russell Wilson Let's Ride. Yes, I am giving Keenan Allen the honorable mention for that because honestly, the way he was going about it was so darn stupid.
Let's ride.
But my dud is going to go to home plate umpire Jim Wolf in the Astros Red Sox game. And I mean, granted that everyone else around kind of misunderstood or like wasn't keeping track either. But Jim Wolf forgot to punch out Jordan Alvarez on his third strike, allowing him to get a fourth strike in the at bat. Absolutely nobody else noticed. And
That could
Jordan got away with it.
You could technically say that's another scandal for the Astros, but anyways.
Oh, I mean, Jordan still got out.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a difference. At least, I mean, but the difference is that nobody saw it. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna let you have that. All right, Ruckus, take us out.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Ruckus and the Menace podcast. I am Ruckus.
And I'm Spence the Menace.
Again, thanks a lot for listening to our podcast and listening all the way through. Even if you didn't, that's fine. But thank you for listening to our podcast nonetheless. And also, thank you for the support and the comments. By the way,
We got our first one, didn't we?
yes, and it was from my dad. Yeah, I'm not doxing myself, but anyways, the comment was about the KC Knights, which was a semi-pro basketball team that wasn't technically in the NBA, but let me pull that up really quick. So, his comment was the KC Knights were a pro league that was like a D league. They made it 3 years and disbanded. It had recent college players that were never going to be a big league star in the NBA. And it did not help that the local TV outlets did not report the scores ever. That is to Tim M. Ekadude. And this was like 3 weeks ago, but I didn't realize it. That's my bad. But again, kudos to my dad for giving us the information about the KC Knights, which eventually became the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. I mean, they eventually became an NBA team after all, but
I kind of wish it
good.
was the Kansas City team, to be honest, because we have the freaking real stake for that with the Sprint Center, which is now T-Mobile Center, but I've known it as Sprint Center because, you know, childhood stuff, but also just history. But honestly, it'd be better for the city to have that as far as revenue, but also I think the city really needs a basketball team, but that's here nor there. But yeah,
But I think there's a whole bunch of other teams that could use it as well. I mean, Seattle had one ripped from them, and then
yeah.
you had Then you had St. Louis with an ABA team that kind of dissolved, and so I mean,
Also, like, all I saw a thing, a news outlet say that Las Vegas was apparently getting a new team because of Floyd Mayweather and some other UFC or boxer that was investing in a team for Las Vegas, and then LeBron was gonna back it, of course, but like that's here nor there.
yeah. But with that said, that does it for us. Have a good night.
Anyways, this is Ruckus and The Menace podcast. Thank you for listening, and also our Twitter handles are mine is at give me a second, bad host.
I would have just left it at that.
Mine is at Ruckus Sports 97.
And I'm spent as the menace. Oh my goodness! I'm like, we should have just left it there. we
Have a
got...
good night or day or whenever you're listening. Have a good one. See you later.